We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's December 13th here in Seoul. I'm Shin, and you're watching News Generation. Joining me in the studio is Cheska Dainhong.
Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy Wednesday.
And Nelsong.
Good morning.
Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. As usual, let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. The movie 12/12 The Day is on the roll. In less than 3 weeks, the film was watched by over 7 million moviegoers, the first for a Korean film that's not a sequel or part of a series to do so since the COVID-19 pandemic. The historical thriller covers the military coup by Chun Doo-hwan that shook South Korea following the assassination of President Park Chung-hee in 1979. The film is soon to surpass the 10 million mark. And moving on to news in Japan, a fellow country struggling with a declining birth rate. The Japanese government is planning to make university tuition and related expenses free for all households with 3 or more children starting from the year 2025. Officials said there will be no income cap. They'll also cover households with students attending even junior or technical colleges. Until now, Japan has been covering the education fees of students from households with an annual income of less than $26,200. But to grapple with its demographic crisis, Japan has decided to expand its education fee subsidy program. And ending off with some local news. The country's prestigious science and tech university, KAIST, announced on Tuesday that it will try ushering a 3+4-2 program from 2025. This is a fast-track system that aims to foster more doctors in their 20s by connecting a bachelor's course to one's master's and even doctoral program. KAIST admission office specifically pointed to how their latest integration program aims to foster famous physicists like Oppenheimer, who obtained his doctorate degree at the age of 23. Now, to elaborate on what this system is, let's do some simple math. Let's say you're a student who entered KAIST at the age of 18, and if you don't take any breaks and follow the 3+4-2 program, you'd be able to get a doctor's degree at the age of 24. Now, of course, you would have to demonstrate excellent academic performance and proceed with your bachelor's degree until at least your 3rd semester in order to be considered a fast-track candidate. But once you're eligible, you would be able to take master's or doctoral level classes. And other universities in Korea have been also trying to implement fast-track systems to allocate more high-level degrees. But KAIST's latest proposal differs in the sense that it links a bachelor's program all the way to a doctoral degree. So here at the studio, what do you guys think about this fast-track system? Who do you think it's really targeting and benefiting, and what are your hopes for it?
Yeah, I think it could be really efficient for those who really know what they want to do and they can focus on that specifically. I think it doesn't work for everybody, let's just say that. But then I think if you already have set in stone by the time you enter university and that's exactly what you want to do for the next 7 years, then go for it. I think it's great.
It could be a really good opportunity. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there are definitely pros and cons to undergoing this kind of program. So it mentioned that it wants to create more Oppenheimer type of scientists. Now, because if you've seen the movie, I don't know if having more Oppenheimer in our society is a good thing. So I'll focus on having a doctorate at 20s as the focus. But I think if you think back to when we were applying to colleges, when you're 17 and 18, most of the time you haven't had enough life experiences to really understand what you want to do for the next, even the next year, to be honest. Like even picking a major, I think was a very difficult task for me. So having to commit to something for the next 4 years down the road to get a doctoral degree and to become a professional in that field, I think is a huge commitment.
Exactly.
So I hope that there is a criteria or screening system that makes sure that people who are applying to this kind of program is completely aware of the kind of commitment they're making, and hopefully they get more work experience and life experience before they actually get to commit to this, in my opinion.
I think that's a really good point, because even though you make a commitment that early in your age, sometimes you want to change majors.
Of course.
There's so many friends around me who were so committed into doing one thing when they started off as like a freshman in college, but they would decide to change their majors once they're a junior. So hopefully we would see some flexibility there. But this program is also thought to be beneficial to male students who have to go serve their mandatory military service here in Korea. Such students could become a professional researcher in their 3rd year into the program, then go to the military, given that they started the program in their early 20s. Once they complete their service, they would be able to complete their PhD in their mid mid or late 20s, which wouldn't be too late to start their career in science and tech. So we'll hopefully see these benefits reap onto any of the candidates that are eligible starting from the year 2025. But in the meantime, that was our news feed for this Wednesday. And let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. This year's UN climate conference, COP28, held in Dubai, went into overtime. It was supposed to close on Tuesday local time, but participating countries couldn't reach an agreement even in the early hours of Wednesday morning on its latest draft. And that's because many nations criticized how the deal didn't call for a, quote, phase out of fossil fuels, which scientists dub the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions that drive the globe's temperatures up. Though we're still left to see negotiators breaking a deal, participating countries have recognized the need to address pressing environmental issues. My AI voice secretary will explain in detail.
Starting back on November 30th, more than 70,000 delegates from around the world gathered to participate in the Multilateral Decision-Making Forum on Climate Change. This year's main focus was asking the world's richest countries to aim for net zero emissions as close as possible to 2040 to uphold the goal of keeping global temperature rise Celsius. Another key term mentioned was maintaining resilience in food systems. That refers to not only providing adequate food supply around the world, but also conserving and restoring land and natural ecosystems for healthier, eco-friendly agriculture. COP28 also points to how we need to adapt more sustainable approaches to production and consumption.
As we're speaking, countries are still trying to find an agreement on the language used in the draft. More than 100 countries, ranging from the U.S. to tiny island nations, are demanding that we phase out fossil fuels, but OPEC oil producer groups and its allies are showing strong resistance. Nonetheless, there were many other agendas discussed during this year's UN Climate Change Conference, and we're going to be delving deeper into food systems. So Cheska, why don't you start us off by highlighting the main things discussed in regards to food systems?
Sure. I think one of the most notable and important outcomes so far was that for the first time, food security and climate change issues became a central discussion topics at COP28. Now, the UAE Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems and Climate Action was announced, garnering support from 134 global leaders at the conference, which is quite amazing. And this declaration not only addresses the worldwide challenge of greenhouse gas emission, but also outline measures to protect the lives and livelihoods of the farmers that are sort of at the front lines of climate change. Now, overall, I think it is a very positive direction indeed. However, we're still undergoing this discussion and trying to figure out the right wording, and the contentions are still happening. So I do hope that there is a follow through and strong actions actually taken outside of the conference halls and not just within.
Exactly. I do think fossil fuels play an integral part. It's a main agenda, of course, for any COP events that we've seen throughout the whole years. But what else? We've been talking about food security for a while now. Would you like to elaborate on that front?
I mean, Cheska was talking about how it's important to take this outside of the conference as well. And I just want to kind of make a little point on what they're doing there at the conference and how they've prepared the food that they're having at the conference. Okay. I thought this was so interesting. As the focus of the climate change conference is to change the current food industry's food system, 2/3 of the food provided at the conference is actually vegan and plant-based menus. I was excited to hear about this. It was called the 1.5 degrees minus, I guess, menus, and they're carefully calculated to keep less than 1.5 degrees Celsius for global warming standards. They calculated the intensity of carbon and water on all the menus. They minimized the waste, used sustainable packaging, and the food options there seem quite diverse. I looked on their website. They have anything from toast to skewers to various Middle Eastern, Japanese,
all sounds
Vietnamese,
really good.
American food. They have burgers, and it's all plant-based. So I thought this was a very symbolic way to kind of say, oh, we really need to start making changes in our daily lives as well.
Right.
That's a very good point. Not only are they drafting all these different documents and talking about policies, they're actually taking action and showing with the food that they're eating how we can do that. And food systems have been found to contribute to 1/3 of global greenhouse gas emissions. And while we may not be able to phase food out in the same way we do with fossil fuels, officials at COP28 have mentioned how we should by changing our food systems so that they they can achieve net zero emissions and restore resilience. And this was a relatively innovative suggestion given out during this year's UN Climate Change Conference. Now, I want to ask you guys, though, were you guys quite aware that food systems affect the environment? And what do you think about this latest issue?
I mean, we've discussed it a couple of times in here in the studio and the episodes about food sustainability and the crisis that we're having with the climate. So absolutely, I think it's so critical and central to almost every aspect of climate and environmental issues. I mean, in terms of how our food consumption has been affecting not just the environment, but it's economic and political as well. So we know that there are lobbyists and corporates out there that probably have their best interest in heart, not for the longevity of the planet. So I think it's a multifaceted issue. So for me, I think it's something that we really, really have to tackle, because how we consume the food can definitely affect the environment in a very, very critical way. I mean, I think we kind of said it before too. If you eat just replace 3 meals with vegan or vegetarian diet, you can take millions of cars out the road. I mean, that's a crazy statistic.
I know.
It's so simple to do, and it can have such a huge effect. And already I think there's this, advertisement and stereotype that meat diet is the quote-unquote healthy and wealthy diet, which is not true. So according to the Intergovernmental Panel Climate Change, IPCC, emissions from livestock account for 1/5 of global emissions, which Niall will illustrate further. But I think just replacing it with vegetarian meals, changing the way that we consume food, can have a huge impact in our lives.
Exactly. Given the fact that we do it every day, might as well change up a few daily habits.
Exactly.
Now, Niall, would you like to elaborate on how food systems are affecting the environment?
I mean, we've mentioned this, as Cheska said, we talked about it on the show. I've heard about it from friends. I've read it online. And at first, I was kind of shocked to find that animals that we raise for meat create greenhouse emissions. And if you don't really think too far into it, you don't understand what it is that they're creating. But it's basically their burbs of these cows, these lovely cows, their burbs, their excretion, and everything that it takes to raise these animals. And people are trying to reduce, I guess, all of this by, like Cheska was mentioning, going vegan or reducing meat intake on a daily basis. But also there are efforts on creating things like low carbon feeds. So I guess that reduces carbon when you feed these. And excretion purification technology has also been developing a lot. So hopefully, I don't want to just say let's limit everyone's diet to just veganism and vegetarianism, but there are other ways that people are trying to renovate. There are many different ways people are trying to be creative.
It's such a complex issue because it's not only about what type of food is on our table, it's actually the process of making that food, the agriculture, the livestock, the whole procedure. Now, we asked our viewers to provide innovative ideas on their front on how to better tackle food shortages and strengthen food supplies around the world amid climate change. And here's what 3 of them had to say. Take a look at the screen to find out. Tasmia said the ingredients that we need to make a certain dish also leave waste as much as the packaging to protect it. We need to find the techniques to utilize each and every part of our ingredients so that nothing will be left to be thrown out. Giselle said there is a lot of plastic and vinyl waste from how our food is packaged. Some European nations have found environmentally friendly materials to package food or just sell products unpackaged. People take their own reusable bags to sort their produce. Now, Takata said, let's join hands and create a sustainable food system. Choose plant-based meals, refuse single-use plastics, and support eco-friendly farms. Together, we can make a difference. And as Takata said, together we can definitely make a difference, and changing our daily habits is an important step to tackling climate change, and specifically to contribute to better food security and systems. Changing our daily eating habits could be a plus. That's why we're now going to talk to someone who has turned vegan and is living proof that an individual's habits can affect the environment. To find out more, stay tuned for our live interview. Let's now talk to Chin Won-seok, who's currently working as a filmmaker, but more importantly for today's episode, he's been vegan for years now. And let's find out how his eating patterns are contributing to a better planet. Welcome, Won-seok.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. Hello.
Good morning.
All right, Won-seok, we're going to go around and ask you a question each. I'll start with the first one. When and how did you witness how the food we eat contributes to climate change?
Well, about 12 years ago. That was a long time ago. That's when I became well, once I learned that the food we eat every day comes from, this factory farming, animal agricultural, this industrial system. I learned that animal agriculture is responsible for at least 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions, and that's when transportation emissions combined. And that's a huge. And then, because, if you just think about it, it uses about 70% of the agricultural land to grow crops, feed for the animals. You could plant corns. People, plant corns. Instead, I think we could plant, trees. To help heal the planet. But it's really, really, really pretty bad. Yeah.
Right, it's a more easy approach than it'd be ideal if we could go out and plant trees every day, but changing daily habits seem to be more easily done and actually bring about better changes. Now, Cheska, would you like to ask the second question?
Sure, Won-seok, I think you've pointed out all the very important reasons that a lot of people do go vegan. Could you tell us more about how going vegan can help in resurrecting the environment, literally from the situation that we're currently in at the moment, including the climate changes and the environmental issues that we're facing on a daily basis?
Well, so people know that climate change is real, and it's not the future thing. It's right now. We're experiencing it on a daily basis. So we have to do something about it. People talk about how to fight climate change, and in the automobile transportation sector, we talk about EV. EV is the future. Right. In the energy sector, people talk about renewable energy. But in the animal agricultural sector, which is a huge contributor to the global greenhouse gas emissions, people don't talk about anything. They're just, I think maybe it's due to the fact that a lot of lobbyists for the dairy and the meat, industries they're definitely campaigning against it. But I think that we should definitely reduce meat consumption, even maybe try to go vegan or vegetarian, or, I think that that'll really help significantly, because like I said earlier, 70% of the agricultural land is being used for these animal feeds. That's a huge, that means deforestation, biodiversity loss, water pollution. About 20% of fresh water globally is being used for animal agriculture. That's a lot.
Right. That is a lot. Lastly, I want to ask, what are some other environmentally keen things that you do, other than going vegan, that you can do on a daily basis that maybe we can learn from?
All right. So typically in my backpack, I carry 4 things. First of all, I use tumbler, like like an conscious, of course and then you get discounts on when you order coffee. That's good. So. Of course, I carry a tote bag, and I also use this water bottle so that I don't use like these plastic water bottles, And then Tupperware in case I have leftover food when I eat out.
That's a great tip.
Food waste is a huge contributor. Yes. So I think that once you do that, and then I don't buy new clothes anymore. I buy secondhand or vintage. Because fashion, especially fast fashion, is really environmentally harmful. So, and then, use public transportation, ride bikes or walk. If you need to drive, transition to EV. So those are some of the things we can do to, mitigate the climate change.
And all things that we can do on an individual level. Thank you so much, Won Sung. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
All right, so it's no doubt that an overlooked solution to climate change crisis is changing the food we eat or changing our daily habits. And how have food systems or agricultural systems been changing, and where would you like to see them further go following the COP28?
You know, as I mentioned earlier, it definitely follows through with strong enforcement and accountability, I think is important. I mean, I'm truly so happy that we've gotten to a point where leaders are in agreement and there is an ongoing discussion that everybody sort of is trying to agree upon. But there needs to be something done very quickly and seriously. So I think the public sector really has to grab the rein and move the private sector and public support group to really follow through. Because the harsh truth is, and this is the ultimate truth, there is no winner at the end of the story if it continues like this. Everybody is a loser in this game. So I really think that the logo should be not save thy planet, but more like please save thyself.
Yeah, so true.
But it's very true though, yeah.
Because it's not about a winning game, it's all about saving ourselves. What about you, Nell? Final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about agri-tech developing recently, and I mentioned that there were feeds that's actually encouraging animals to have less gas. And I really feel like in the future, as the technology develops, we also should, like once I was mentioning that we can do on a daily basis, we really start taking small steps, and together the macro changes and the micro changes come together and save ourselves.
Save ourselves.
And it's the little things that make change, you know, and it's no longer, as officials have been saying throughout the whole UN Climate Change Conference, now is the time. There's no more time to spare. We should all be taking action, whether it's on a macro level, as you mentioned, or on an individual micro level. In the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Cheska Dainong
Pleasure's always mine, thank you.
and Nell Song.
No problem.
All right, and thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are
News Generation.